the creak of a garden gate, polished shoes on a doorstep, the nervous adjustment of a tie before pressing that brass doorbell. If your dad ever told you about calling on a girl, or your mom mentioned being courted properly, you already know something magical has vanished from the world. Back in the 1960s, romance had rules, real ones. Not the made-up kind we scroll past today, but rituals that turned meeting someone into an art form. There was weight to it all, consequence, anticipation, butterflies that lasted weeks instead of seconds. What happened between then and now wasn't just progress. We didn't just change how we date, we completely rewrote what love looks like, sounds like, feels like. Some call it freedom, others call it loss. Stay with me, because what you're about to discover might just explain why your grandparents' love letters still make you cry, while your dating app matches barely make you feel anything at all. Picture this. It's 1963, and young David has been watching Margaret from across the church hall for 3 Sunday services running. His palms sweat just thinking about her laugh. But he can't simply walk over and ask her out. That would be improper, scandalous even. Instead, David must navigate a delicate dance of intention. First, he approaches Margaret's father after Sunday roast, hat literally in hand. "Mr. Thompson, I'd very much like to call on your daughter, if you'll permit it." The weight of those words, "call on," carried the gravity of genuine intention. This wasn't casual. This was courtship with a capital C. The formal courtship system of the 1960s Britain operated like a beautiful, complex piece of clockwork. Every cog had its place. Every movement had meaning. You didn't date multiple people simultaneously. That would be leading them on. You didn't see where things went. You courted with marriage as the understood destination. Margaret's father would size up David's character, his prospects, his family. If approved, David earned the privilege of sitting in the front parlor under watchful eyes, perhaps taking Margaret for a supervised walk through the village on Sunday afternoons. Compare that to today's casual dating landscape, where Sarah swipes right on 5 different men before her morning coffee, arranges drinks with 3 of them for the same week, and considers none of it particularly significant. The apps have turned romance into a marketplace, endless options, minimal investment, maximum convenience. But here's what we've lost in translation, that delicious weight of intention. When David finally worked up the courage to court Margaret, both of them knew it meant something. Today's casual dating, for all its freedom, often leaves people feeling like they're auditioning for a role in someone else's life, rather than building something together. The 1960s courtship said, "You matter enough for me to do this properly." Today's casual dating whispers, "You're one option among many." Both have their place perhaps, but only one made hearts race with the gravity of genuine possibility. Close your eyes and imagine. It's a crisp October evening in 1964. The sitting room fire crackles softly as young Robert perches on the edge of the horsehair sofa, his Sunday best still carrying the faint scent of carbolic soap. Across from him, barely 3 feet away, but might as well be 3 miles, sits Patricia in her best frock, hands folded properly in her lap. Between them hovers the most powerful presence in the room, Patricia's mother, knitting needles clicking rhythmically in her chair by the window. She's not ignoring them, far from it. Every glance, every nervous laugh, every tentative conversation about the weather gets filtered through those watchful maternal eyes. This was romance in the age of chaperones, when being alone with your sweetheart was a privilege earned, not a given. The sitting room became a stage where young love performed under the gentle but firm supervision of family. You couldn't touch hands without it being noticed. You couldn't whisper secrets without risking a pointed cough from the corner chair. But here's the beautiful contradiction. Those stolen moments became electric because of their rarity. When Patricia's mother briefly stepped out to fetch tea and Robert's fingers finally brushed Patricia's for just a heartbeat, that single touch carried more voltage than entire evenings spent together today. The chaperone courtship wasn't about mistrust. It was about building anticipation, creating a framework where emotional intimacy grew slowly, deliberately, like a carefully tended garden. Conversations deepened because physical distractions were limited. You had to actually talk, really listen, Discover who someone was beneath the surface attractions. Contrast this with today's private encounters from the very first meeting. Modern couples meet at coffee shops, restaurants, each other's flats, alone together immediately, with no social framework to guide the interaction. Privacy is instant, expected, sometimes overwhelming. What we've gained is obvious: freedom, authenticity, the ability to be ourselves without performance. But what have we lost? That delicious tension of earning intimacy gradually, the way anticipation built like pressure in a steam kettle, making every small progression feel monumental. Today's private encounters offer immediate access to someone's full personality, unfiltered and real. But sometimes the slow reveal of chaperoned courtship created a mystery, a gradual unveiling that made falling in love feel like unwrapping the most precious gift in the world, one careful layer at a time. The scratch of fountain pen on paper, the careful selection of each word, knowing once the ink dried, there was no taking it back. The walk to the pillar box, heart hammering as the envelope disappeared into that red mouth with a hollow thunk. Then, waiting, days of waiting, checking the front mat every morning until finally, her handwriting appeared on your doorstep like a small miracle. This was romance in the age of letters, when words had weight because they took time. In 1965, when James wanted to tell Elizabeth how her laugh made him feel, he couldn't fire off a quick text between meetings. He had to sit at his kitchen table after tea, maybe with his mother's best paper, and craft sentences that would carry his feelings across town and through time. "Dearest Elizabeth," he might begin, then pause, pen hovering. How do you capture the way someone's eyes catch the light? How do you explain that their voice has been echoing in your head for 3 days straight? In an age before delete buttons, every word mattered. Crossouts were visible evidence of struggle, of care, of the very real effort it took to translate a heart onto paper. Elizabeth would receive that letter perhaps 2 days later, recognizing his careful script through the window before even opening the door. She'd carry it to her room, sit by the window, and read it slowly, not because she was a slow reader, but because letters weren't meant to be consumed quickly. They were meant to be savored, reread, pressed between book pages for safekeeping. The rhythm of letter-based courtship created natural breathing space in relationships. You wrote when you had something meaningful to say. You waited, which gave feelings time to mature like wine in a cellar. When James finally saw Elizabeth again, their connection felt deeper because their words had been marinating in anticipation. Now picture today's instant messaging landscape. Sarah's phone buzzes 12 times during lunch with her mother. Tom sends her photos of his sandwich, random observations about traffic, a string of emoji faces that somehow pass for emotional expression. By evening, they've exchanged 47 messages about nothing particularly meaningful. Modern dating moves at the speed of thought, or faster. We share every passing mood, every minor inconvenience, every fleeting observation. The constant connection creates intimacy, yes, but it's intimacy without mystery, closeness without anticipation. What we've gained is obvious: immediacy, constant contact, the ability to share life as it happens. What we've lost might be more precious: the art of distilling feelings into carefully chosen words, the sweet agony of waiting for a response, the weight that comes when communication requires real effort and intention. Picture the scene. It's a Sunday afternoon in 1966, and young William stands outside Mr. Henderson's garden shed, where the older man is tending to his prize-winning roses. William's collar feels too tight. His carefully rehearsed words keep scrambling in his head, and his hands won't stop shaking. He's about to ask for something that will change the course of 2 lives forever. "Mr. Henderson, sir." The older man looks up from his pruning shears, already knowing from William's expression what's coming. "I'd very much like to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage, if you'll give me your blessing." This wasn't just ceremony for ceremony's sake. This was the formal recognition that marriage in 1960s Britain wasn't just about 2 people. It was about 2 families, 2 histories, 2 futures intertwining like the honeysuckle climbing Mr. Henderson's garden fence. When William asked for permission, he was acknowledging that Margaret wasn't just choosing him. Her entire family was gaining a son, a provider, a man whose character would reflect on their family name for decades to come. The ritual had weight because it had consequences. Mr. Henderson would study William's prospects, his steadiness, his reputation in the village. Did he drink too much at the local? Did he attend church regularly? Could he provide for Margaret in the manner she deserved? Was his own family respectable? These weren't idle questions. They were careful investigations into the architecture of a future life. And Margaret? She waited, knowing her father's approval would smooth the path ahead, while his disapproval could complicate everything. It wasn't that she couldn't make her own choices, but rather that her choices rippled through generations. Love wasn't just personal, it was communal, familial, woven into the very fabric of how society held itself together. Fast forward to today's independent decision-making landscape. Emma meets Jake on a dating app. They hit it off over craft beer and shared Netflix preferences, and within 6 months they're moving in together. Emma's father learns about Jake's existence through a casual mention over Sunday roast. "Oh, by the way, Jake and I are thinking of getting engaged." No formal request, no family consultation, no seeking of blessing or approval. Modern independence means Emma can choose based purely on her own feelings, her own assessment of compatibility, her own vision of the future. She doesn't need anyone's permission to love who she loves, live with whom she chooses, or build the life that makes her happy. This is progress, liberation, the hard-won right of women to control their own destinies. But something subtle has been lost in this transformation. The sense of love as a community investment, romance as something that extends beyond just two people. When William asked Mr. Henderson's permission, he was joining not just Margaret but an entire support system, a network of people invested in making their marriage work. Today's independent decisions offer freedom, but can sometimes feel isolated, unsupported, like building a house without a foundation of family approval and community investment. Neither system is perfect. The 1960s model could trap people in unsuitable matches approved by families, but not hearts. Today's model can leave couples facing life's challenges without the deep community support that comes when entire families have bought into the relationship from the beginning. The question isn't which system is better, but what we might learn from both about the delicate balance between personal freedom and communal wisdom, between love as individual choice and love as social bond. You're absolutely right. Let me adjust the length and continue with shorter, more concise sections. Saturday night, 1967. The Astoria Dance Hall fills with music as four couples move together. Michael and Susan, Tony and Jennifer, David and Carol, Stephen and Patricia. This wasn't just dating, this was community courtship. Nobody ventured out alone because that wasn't how romance worked. Your relationship developed within a safety net of friends who could ease awkward silences, provide moral support, and keep everything proper. When conversation faltered between Michael and Susan, Tony cracked jokes or Jennifer suggested fish and chips at the pier. Group dating created natural buffers against overwhelming intensity. 8 friends piled into Tony's Morris Minor after dances, heading to late-night cafes, actively invested in each other's romantic success. If Michael seemed nervous, the group created opportunities for him to shine. If Patricia looked bored, someone steered conversation toward topics that might spark connection. The group provided quality control too. Poor treatment didn't happen in isolation. It happened in front of friends who offered gentle correction or social consequences. Your relationships existed within a community that cared about their success. Compare this to today's individual pairing. Emma and Jake meet for coffee, carrying the entire weight of connection on their own shoulders. They navigate every milestone in isolation. 2 people figuring out compatibility without community wisdom or group dynamics. Modern pairing offers authenticity without performance, deeper intimacy without distractions. But we've lost the safety net of community investment, the natural ease when romantic pressure gets distributed across a group, the way friends help you see someone's qualities or spot red flags. Group dating created relationships within a social ecosystem, supported and nurtured by people who cared. Individual pairing creates relationships that sink or swim entirely on their own merits. Tuesday evening, 1965. Thomas straightens his tie, walks to the telephone box and dials Margaret's number. When she answers, he asks politely, "Would you care to accompany me to the pictures this Saturday?" "There's a new Julie Christie film at the Odeon," he asks. She considers. He waits. This wasn't just conversation. It was ritual with clearly defined roles everyone understood. Thomas initiated because that's what men did. Margaret responded graciously because that's what women did. He planned, chose venues, paid for tickets. She dressed beautifully, showed appreciation, allowed herself to be cared for. These weren't arbitrary rules. They were social choreography evolved over generations. Thomas felt secure as initiator and provider. Margaret felt treasured as the one worth pursuing. The system had problems, but it had clarity. Saturday arrived. Thomas called for Margaret at precisely 7, not 6:58, not 7:02. He greeted her parents, helped with her coat, opened doors, walked streetside. Margaret looked lovely, expressed genuine interest, allowed him to guide their evening. Neither felt confused about expectations because expectations were woven into society's understanding of romance. The beauty wasn't rigidity, it was reliability. Young people could focus on knowing each other instead of negotiating who should do what, when, how. Now picture today's fluid expectations. Sarah and Jake meet through an app. Who messages first? Who suggests meeting? Who chooses venues? Who pays? Who initiates contact? Who determines relationship pace? Modern dating requires constant negotiation of roles once simply understood. Sarah might prefer traditional treatment, but worry about seeming anti-feminist. Jake might want to pay, but fear seeming presumptuous. Every interaction becomes a careful dance around assumptions neither wants to make. We've gained equality and choice, but we've lost the comfort of shared understanding, the ease that comes when everyone knows the steps to the dance. The front garden gate clicks shut behind them. It's 1964, and after 3 months of supervised visits, Margaret's parents finally trust Robert enough to let them walk to the village green. Alone, but with strict instructions to be back before the street lamps light. They stroll slowly, Margaret's hand resting lightly in the crook of Robert's elbow, the most intimate contact they've shared. When they reach the old oak tree, Robert turns to face her, his heart hammering. After a moment's hesitation, he gently takes her hand properly, fingers intertwining. The electricity of that simple touch could power the entire village. This was romance in the age of boundaries when physical intimacy followed a carefully choreographed progression. Holding hands was milestone number 1. A brief kiss goodnight after months of courtship was milestone number 2. Anything beyond that waited for engagement, and full intimacy waited for marriage. The rules weren't suggestions. They were the moral architecture that held society together. But here's what we've forgotten. Those boundaries created anticipation that made every small progression feel monumental. When Robert finally worked up courage to kiss Margaret's cheek after 6 months of courtship, that gentle brush of lips carried more emotional voltage than entire nights together today. The system built romance like a slow-burning fire. Every boundary crossed felt earned, precious, significant. Young couples had to actually talk, really know each other, because physical distractions were limited. Emotional intimacy grew deep roots before physical intimacy even began. Compare this to today's physical freedom. Emma and Jake meet for drinks, feel attracted, and might share physical intimacy that same evening. No rules, no waiting, no progression, just mutual desire and modern freedom. Today's approach offers honesty about physical needs, the ability to explore compatibility without artificial constraints, freedom from shame around natural desires. If two adults want to be together, why shouldn't they? But something's been lost in translation. When everything's available immediately, nothing feels particularly special. The anticipation that made every touch electric, every boundary crossed, feels significant. That's vanished into the digital ether. Physical boundaries created a framework where intimacy felt earned, precious, weighted with meaning. Physical freedom offers choice, but sometimes struggles to create the emotional significance that comes from gradually unveiling intimacy, layer by careful layer. Mrs. Henderson peers through her lace curtains as young Thomas walks Margaret home from the village dance. 2 doors down, Mr. Pemberton notes the time, 10:45 p.m., perfectly respectable, while watering his roses. By morning, half the street knows Thomas and Margaret are getting serious, and the other half will know by tea time. This was romance in 1960s Britain. Utterly, completely, thoroughly public. Your courtship wasn't just yours. It belonged to the neighborhood, the church congregation, the local shop where people gathered to discuss whose son was courting whose daughter. Mrs. Fletcher at the post office kept mental notes on who received letters from whom. The baker's wife noticed when couples started walking to church together. Community involvement wasn't nosiness. It was investment. When Thomas finally proposed to Margaret, the entire street felt personally involved in their success. Mrs. Henderson would knit baby blankets for their future children. Mr. Pemberton would offer advice about mortgages and home maintenance. The community had watched this love story unfold, and now they were stakeholders in its happy ending. This system created natural accountability. If Thomas treated Margaret poorly, it didn't happen in isolation. It happened in front of neighbors who might have quiet words with his mother or exclude him from village events. If Margaret seemed unhappy, church ladies would invite her for tea and gentle conversation. Community oversight meant community support. Today's private affairs operate in completely different territory. Emma and Jake can date for months before her neighbors even know Jake exists. They can break up, reconcile, move in together, or split apart without anyone beyond their immediate circle knowing or caring. Their relationship exists in a bubble of privacy that would have been impossible in the 1960s Britain. Modern privacy offers obvious benefits: freedom from judgment, the ability to work through problems without public scrutiny, space to be authentic without performing for neighbors. Emma and Jake can explore their compatibility without feeling like they're providing entertainment for the entire street. But we've lost something precious: the sense of community investment in love's success, the network of people actively rooting for relationships to work, the accountability that comes when your romance exists within a web of caring neighbors who remember what love looked like when it was young. The banns are read for the third Sunday running: Thomas William Hartwell and Margaret Rose Thompson. From the back pew, Margaret's grandmother dabs her eyes with a handkerchief, not just from joy, but from the weight of what those words mean. When Thomas and Margaret exchange vows next month, they're not just promising to love each other, they're stepping into an institution designed to last till death do us part. In 1960s Britain, dating meant marriage intentions. Full stop. You didn't court someone casually, explore options, or see where things went. When Thomas first asked permission to call on Margaret, both families understood this was the beginning of a journey toward the altar. Every Sunday walk, every supervised visit, every carefully chaperoned evening was a step along a path that led to one destination: lifelong partnership. This expectation shaped everything about how relationships developed. Thomas chose Margaret not just because she made his heart race, but because she'd make a good wife, mother, companion for the next 50 years. Margaret evaluated Thomas not just on charm or attractiveness, but on his ability to provide, protect, and remain faithful through decades of ordinary Tuesdays. The weight of forever changed how couples approach conflict, compromise, and commitment. When problems arose, and they always did, walking away wasn't really an option. You learned to work things through because this relationship had to last. Families stayed involved because they were invested in long-term success, not short-term happiness. Today's trial relationship model operates from completely different assumptions. Emma might date Jake for 2 years, live with him, share bank accounts and pets and daily routines, all while maintaining that they're seeing how things go. Modern dating expects multiple serious relationships before finding the one, if there even is a one. This approach offers obvious advantages: the ability to truly know someone before committing legally, freedom to leave incompatible situations, the chance to grow and change without being locked into decisions made at 22. But something profound has shifted. When forever isn't the expectation, relationships can feel more like extended auditions than genuine partnerships. The security that came from knowing you were both committed to making this work, whatever this threw at you, has been replaced by the constant possibility that someone might decide they're not feeling it anymore. Neither system is perfect, but each created its own kind of love story. The 1960s model built relationships designed to last but sometimes trapped people in unsuitable matches. Today's model offers freedom and authenticity, but can struggle to create the deep security that comes from knowing someone has chosen you, really chosen you, for keeps.
So there you have it. 9 differences that tell the story of how we learned to love, lost the script, and started writing new rules entirely. From formal courtship to casual swiping, from chaperoned visits to private encounters, from handwritten letters to messages that vanish into digital air. But here's what haunts me. We didn't just change how we date. We changed what love itself feels like. Those 1960s couples knew something we've forgotten, that love wasn't just a feeling to consume, but a craft to learn, a commitment to honor even when it got difficult. Yes, their system had flaws, but somewhere between breaking their constraints and building our freedoms, we lost some wisdom. We traded the deep security of chosen-for-life commitment for the anxious freedom of perpetual options. Maybe the tragedy isn't that we changed. It's that we threw out the baby with the bathwater. If any of this stirred something in you, share your family's courtship stories in the comments. Those memories matter more than we realize. And if you enjoyed this journey through the heart's history, consider subscribing for more glimpses into how we used to love. Until next time, keep those memories alive.